Our top story this hour, Myanmar's junta has executed 4 prisoners, including a former lawmaker from Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party. Now, this is the country's first use of capital punishment in decades. As per reports, the 4, including another prominent democracy activist, were executed for leading quote-unquote brutal and inhumane terror acts, adding that the executions were carried out under the prison's procedure without giving details of when or how the men were killed. The junta has sentenced dozens of anti-coup activists to death since seizing power last year. The sentences came as part of its crackdown on dissent. However, Myanmar had not carried out any executions for decades. Now, Fiozia Thaw, who was a former lawmaker from Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, was arrested in November and was sentenced to death in January for offences under anti-terrorism laws. Thaw had been accused of orchestrating several attacks on regime forces. This includes a gun attack on a commuter train that killed 5 policemen in August. He was elected to parliament representing Aung San Suu Kyi's party in the 2015 elections. This ushered in a transition to civilian rule in Myanmar. And prominent democracy activist Kyaw Min Yu also received the same sentence from the military tribunal. 2 other men were also sentenced to death for killing a woman. They had alleged that she was an informer for the junta. Global leaders, they've heavily criticized the junta when they announced their intention to carry out the executions last month. UN Secretary General also condemned the junta's decision, adding that it was a blatant violation of the right to life, liberty and security. Now, the country's military alleged voter fraud during elections in 2020, and they used this as justification for their coup in February last year. Suu Kyi has been detained since then and faces a slew of charges. This could see her face a prison sentence of more than 150 years. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by journalist Aung Nyang Soo. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. My first question to you, as I mentioned, this is the country's first use of capital punishment in decades. What does this mean for Myanmar and the junta's grip on power?
This is a very shocking news for the whole country. Many people expected that the junta will not execute these activists, that they just sentence death penalty against them, but they would not be executed. That's what many people have expected. And also just a few days ago, the military informed the family members of those activists to join a Zoom meeting with the death sentence prisoners, like 4 of them. And after this meeting, the military said like they don't have a plan for the execution yet. And in a couple of days, they just wrote on state-controlled newspaper in a very small note underneath one of the pages, and it says like the punishment has already carried out. It is very vague information that they give to local people and also the international community. They are unclear that whether they carry out the death penalty actually or not. But then we managed to get verification through the family members. Some prison officials confirmed to the remaining families that the death penalty has executed already, but the prison officials refused to give the dead bodies. They refused to give the dead bodies to the family members, and this is really against the prison manual. And so the military is clearly violating all the rights of the prisoners and the people.
Right. Now, just so that I'm getting this right, you're saying that there's still no clarity on this, and what do you think is the reason for this?
No, at this point, there is a clarity that the military has already carried out the execution. But earlier, like I'm talking about 1 or 2 hours earlier, like this morning, it was very vague. it was very vague. So this made like people into like confusion. Families who were they were mourning in this situation, and the military kind of still play the game, and this shows that the military is still a very unreliable institution to believe that.
All right. Now, also, of course, this has sparked condemnation from the international community as well. What sort of action, if any, can we expect from the international community on this?
I'm not sure what we can expect from the international community. There was an ASEAN representative. He met Myanmar, and we heard some news that the military junta promised him that the execution would not be carried out, and he kept this information confidential. I mean, why it was confidential? You know, this is related to someone's life. You know, it should be publicized. You know, if the military actually promised it, unless if the military didn't promise or say anything about it, I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to expect. Like what we can expect from the military. It is such a frustration. You know, like this time in this war, you know, like the military regime in our country is carrying out death execution for activists. You know, this is so ridiculous, and the international community cannot do anything. That's crazy.
Right, absolutely. Now, Mr. Nangso, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.